Hi, and welcome back. As you can see, it's been a little bit of an interesting day on Robinhood. I invested an extra $50 this week, so my total investment is about $29.50 right now. So I'm down a little bit all time. Not a great week in general, but as you can see, today was really goofy with this large downward trend, and then a real horrible afternoon with this downward spike and then back up. In this video, I'll talk about why that is and what I've done this week. So the big reason that we're seeing this is Vivint Solar. So Vivint reported their earnings this afternoon. They missed expectations. Robinhood had a little bit higher earnings expectations for Vivint than most companies did. I'm a little bit interested about this one. Robinhood actually says that their earnings per share was negative 99 cents per share. I've got an article pulled up that it was 11 cents negative per share. So I'm a little bit interested as to what that is. But the big news here is that Robinhood has them missing their expectations. Pretty much everyone has them missing their expectations by a large margin. What this means for the future of the company, I'm not totally sure yet. I'm going to look more in detail into the earnings call itself to see kind of the indications of what's going wrong. I've talked about in the past that they have refinanced some of their debt, tried to move things around to make it work better. Has not worked out great for them in the past 6 months or so. So as you can see, that large downward spike on the month, I'll go ahead and show again, down. The big thing is when we start looking into 3 months and a year, we see this really large downward spike. And this all started in that last earnings call here in August. It's a stock that I want to hold on to. This article that I have pulled up says that the price target right now, experts have, is anywhere from $10.50 to $12. There's a lot of upside with this company, but at the same time, a lot of risk. It's very volatile. And the solar industry in general is a little bit difficult to kind of get a grip on and understand what exactly is going on. So in this article, they talk about the fact that they recorded losses. The interesting thing here is that their revenue actually beat expectations. So they're doing well in some aspects. The big problem is that they haven't figured out how to put it together and make money yet. Clearly, that's extremely important and something that people are looking forward to in the future to see how they can make that happen. So as you can see, a year ago, they said losses of 7 cents per share. This year, it's 11 cents per share, so that's not good at all. But the big thing in this article that they talk about is that Vivint has been given a lot of leeway by investors and analysts. People see the upside in the company. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to deliver recently. That's something that they can turn around in the long run, but clearly it needs to happen sooner rather than later. But here's the really interesting thing. Vivint Solar has spiked 77% since the beginning of the year. It's a company that people were looking really highly into. I wish I had bought more shares earlier, but clearly hindsight's 2020. So this is definitely one to watch for the future and something that I've been wanting to take a look at every single week. Now we look at my portfolio as a whole on the week. It's not looking great, but it's not looking terrible. So up about 0.5%, but clearly the vast majority of that had to do with that very large Bitcoin spike that we saw last week. When we look further into the month, we can see that I'm up in general. But when we look into the 3 months, we can see that I've got this downward trend going on. And it's concerning, but at the same time, I've talked about kind of the struggles of Bitcoin have made a big difference for me. And because my portfolio currently relies so heavily on Bitcoin, that's going to be a big issue for me, the success of Bitcoin or lack thereof. So we'll go ahead and take a look at Bitcoin. Hovering about $9,300 on the day, clearly down. It's up on the week still. The big thing here, again, is when we look at the 3 months or even a year, we're in this downward trend. I've said it once and I'll say it again. I'm really confident that when Bitcoin goes ahead and halves their reward for mining in May, I think that'll have a huge impact. It has the first 2 times. It's something that I'm willing to take a risk on. So as you can see, down about $48, which not fun, but at the same time, I'm not overly concerned about that. And I'm pretty confident that at the very least, I'll get a decent return on Bitcoin. And so I'm going to go ahead and hold on to that and continue to increase my share. So every week now I'm buying a little bit of Bitcoin, very, very minuscule amounts. So you can see I'm up to 5.18% of a single Bitcoin. Not very much at all, but that price is extremely high. So you can see I bought on November 1st, bought $10 worth at 91.21. The big one here is that I was able to buy $10 worth when Bitcoin was down a couple weeks ago, down at 7,900. So that's something that I'm going to add every single week. And again, a very large part of my portfolio. Now, the other interesting things to look at this week are some of my smaller shares. So Charles Schwab, their dividend payment is coming up. I wish I'd bought a few more shares sooner. I talked about, I think about a month ago, Charles Schwab was really struggling, and they were, but with some of their announcements about cutting fees for trading, they've really done well. They're primed to do well in the future. So as we can see, if we go into the 3 months, if this will ever load, that it's spiking up and down and up and down. And over the last 5 years, we can see that Charles Schwab has struggled a bit. So even though they're up that 50%, we can see that in the last year or two, we've seen a large downward trend. At the same time, I look at it, and everything that I've read has said that Charles Schwab shouldn't struggle horribly in the short term, and in the long term, this should be a good investment. Seeing that it was up to almost $60 within the past couple of years tells me that there's a lot of room to make money. Robinhood has a 47% buy rating on that, so that's always a good sign. And like I said, that dividend is coming up. I think that'll be somewhere towards the end of the month. It's a little bit too late. Execution date was today, but at the same time, I'm pretty confident in that. So their next earnings call isn't until January, but this is another reason to be really confident, is that their earnings per share has steadily climbed over the past couple of years, and that's always a good sign. So the last one we're going to go ahead and take a look at today is SBHD. I show it every single week. I think this gives a really good indication of how the stock market's doing. Clearly, it's my largest holding right now, and something that I want to keep a close look on. So, of course, this is going to follow the S&P 500 pretty closely. I did some more research into this particular ETF, and the only concerns that people have is that this particular ETF tends to value larger companies, even within the S&P 500, very, very highly. So they have large holdings of Microsoft and Apple, which are the two largest companies right now. Seeing as that I'm also investing in Microsoft, that does leave me open to a little bit more volatility and some more fears in the future. But again, I'm not overly concerned. I think I'm in a good position right now to make money, and that I'm in a position right now to, at the very least, hold the equity that I have in the event of a downturn or a recession. So over the last month, up 3.5%. Over the last year, only up about 5%. But as we can see, if you'd bought a year ago in December, those would be very large returns. That's something that the whole of the stock market has seen, and that the vast majority of large companies have seen. So I'll go ahead and zoom out, and we'll go to the year. I always like to show this. I think it's important to be transparent, because even if I'm losing money, I want to be open about that, because to me it doesn't matter if you're making money if you're not showing the losses that you have. I think it's disingenuous, and I don't think that anybody really wants to see that. So clearly this downward trend, I've had spikes up and I've had spikes down, but I think that as I continue to invest money every week, I should do well in the future. So please like and subscribe, and I'll be back next week.